So welcome to the Water Rabbit webinar. And I've described it as a year to reunite, be brave, and make magic happen. And not only, I think, is that a really good title, but I think when you watch this, you'll get to see how we're trying to do all of those individual things. Now, we've broken this webinar into four parts. The first part is we're just going to set the scene. If you're not familiar with the Chinese Zodiac, I can run through it for you quickly. Then we're going to look at understanding the energy of now, what's going on at the moment. Then we're going to look at what I think are the three guiding principles for 2023. And then in part 4, we're going to look at just 2 things I think we need to all watch out for. So it'll be a real map. So let's get this show on the road, and we'll start by setting the scene. We're going to look at the Chinese Zodiac. So basically the way that the Chinese years work is each year is associated with a particular animal, and that animal has certain kind of characteristics. It's also associated with an element and energy, and that also has certain characteristics. And so basically what will happen, 12 times 5 is 60. So each year, so this water rabbit year will occur once every 60 years. So the last time we were in a water rabbit year was 1963. So for most of us, we have one real go at a year in our kind of most sentient power to explore different things. Now, will this year be exactly the same as 1963? No. It won't, because the context in which 1963 was compared to now is different. But there will be similarities with the context, and there will be really similar characteristics. So, for example, at the beginning of the 60s, we were looking at lots of stuff around civil rights and individuality and expression of who we are. And so we're starting to see that. So there are similarities. Now, each year has a theme, a flow, an undercurrent, a kind of like a vibration to it. So that's what the song of this year is. It's playing a particular vibration, a particular tune. And also, each block of 12 years has a theme, a flow, an undercurrent, of vibration. And we're currently in a block of time that's dominated by metal energy. Metal energy is related to autumn, to fall, and that's a time of disconnection and isolation. It's also associated with the emotion of grief, of loss. So in 2020, 2021, we had isolation, loss, etc., grief. We also had some stuff around working out what matters to you and what doesn't matter to you. 1960, they were getting over the grief from 2 world wars and loss and isolation. So there are kind of similarities. So we've got metal energy running through, but do not worry. This year is not like 2020 or 2021 or even 2022. It's a much, much easier year. These years, times vibrate and resonate with you as an individual. So the energy of this year is resonating with you. It's resonating with it interacts with your stars, your east and west, your numerology. It's interacting with the essence of who you are. It's interacting with the energy that you got from your parents, your history, your thing. And the Chinese were very clear when they were exploring what essence is. And essence is it could be described as the promise you made when you came to Earth. So the essence of who you are and what you're here to do, this year will interact with that. So you might think, oh my goodness, that's really confusing. How do I work out how this year is interacting with my east, my west stars, my numerology, my parental energy, my ancestral energy, the essence of who I am, what I'm promised to do? How on earth do I work all that out? Well, there's a really kind of useful shortcut, and I think a really good way to understand how these years and these phases interact with us is looking at in the context of your vitality test profile. Because your vitality test profile, in a way, is the amalgam of your east and your western stars, your numerology. It's got your parental energy there, and it's got the essence of who you are and what it is that you've promised to do when you come to Earth. And when you look at the vitality test profile, you actually have everything you need to fulfill that promise and some explorations and some lessons. So we all have an individual vitality test profile, and it's individual because we're individual. So you might have the same balance of energies as someone else, but your experience and your exploration, the promise you made when you came to Earth, will all be different. So it creates an individuality. But what is the same is that where we have our dominant energies, and this is where you see these arrows coming out, where we have our dominant energies, that will tend to be where we have our focus or our way of seeing the world or what interests us. Whereas where we have low energies, these dense, that tends to be where we have our kind of blind spots or our lack of focus. And that kind of matters a little bit within these years. And if you haven't taken the vitality test or you want to take it again, as you know, it's completely free. Just go to 5institute.com. Okay, let's pull this section together for you. So the energy of this year, what's going to go on, is related to the total energy of the year, this water energy, the rabbit, this energy of the block of time, you, and your vitality test profile as a representation of you. So that's what we're looking at So what I'm going to do in the second part, looking at understanding the energy of now, I'm just going to break this down in a really simple way for you by looking at the energy, the two components of this particular year. We're going to look at water energy first of all, and then we'll look at the rabbit. So with water energy, I think the simplest way to understand water energy is to kind of look at the essence of what water energy is around. So I'm going to look at three areas that you'll get to think, okay, water energy is about these three main things. The first thing that water energy is about consequences and sustainability. Every energy is related to a particular season, and water energy is related to winter. And in winter, we kind of live with the concept. Say if you're a farmer, you would live with the consequences of your actions. If you didn't plant your crops, or you didn't look after them, or you didn't harvest them, then in winter you have the consequences of doing that. In the same way, if you looked after them and you harvested them well and you had plenty of food, you have consequences of that as well. So consequences can be good or bad, and it just depends upon what you do. So if you looked after yourself and you've taken exercise, then there are consequences to that. If you didn't, there are consequences to that. But the creation of the consequences of a water energy year is very much within our gift and what goes on. And water energy is also about sustainability reserves. So, and they tend to go together. If you don't have reserves and resources, and it's not sustainable, your life is not sustainable, then there are consequences. So that's something that will be going on this year. And last year was about that as well. So you may look back and think, I had a lot of consequences. There were lots of things around sustainability. The second essence around water energy is this thing around authority, trust, power, and flow. Now, people naturally with a lot of water energy will exude natural authority and trust. Every energy asks a big question. The big question for water energy is, am I safe? Is it safe? Do we have resources? Do we have reserves? Is this sustainable? So if they're looking after that stuff, we tend to trust them a bit. So interestingly, you often see media outlets will often choose people with a lot of water energy, and you can see this by that characteristic really square jaw. They'll often choose them as news anchors because they want us to trust what they're telling us is correct in terms of the news. But water also has this thing, as well as trust, authority, and power. You look at the nature of the power of water energy, and out of the five elements, the five energies, water is the most powerful. It has this incredible force to push through things, but it also has an ability to drip away at things or dissolve things. And it also has this ability to flow. So on some level, it's really an unstoppable power. So we've got water energy this year, and we had it last year. And the final thing with the essence of water energy is it's about purpose and leaving your mark. And water is the only energy on Earth that really leaves its mark. Think about the Grand Canyons and the valleys carved by glaciers. They're all caused by a constant action of water. And every other energy is very, very transitory. So we've got this purpose and leaving a mark going on. So that's the essence of water energy. Let's look at our little bouncy friend, the rabbit, who is a different character than the tiger. And I think a really lovely energy to bring in. So let's look at the essence of the bunny rabbit. So the first thing is rabbits are very sensitive, they're intuitive, they're alert, adaptive, and lucky. And this is considered, rabbit years are considered to be the most lucky years. And water energy is about destiny, so they're kind of lucky years around destiny. And why are they lucky years? Well, I think it's to do with the sensitivity that this energy, this animal gives us, the intuition, the alertness, the ability to adapt, and all of those things. If you're alert and you're seeing things intuitive, you kind of tend to be lucky. All the research kind of points you in that direction. So I think that's why they're really lucky years. So remember, with these years, with these animals, that's the vibration. That's what we can resonate with and vibrate with. So we will have a year where we will be more sensitive, intuitive, alert, adaptive, and lucky. They're also, by their nature, very peaceful, patient, gentle, and community-driven. This is the first year for quite some time where we have a community-driven year. Tigers, the last year was a tiger year, and that was around power, but it was about external power and taking things over. It was not a community year. The ox was not community. The rat was not community. Pig was not. This is the pig a little bit, but this is more a real community, and it gives us this softer, gentler energy. So for many of us, that would be much easier to live with. And finally, this is something I want you to remember, that in rabbits, what they have an ability is to change direction, and they're fast when required. So when they're required, bam, change direction and move really quickly. And the rest of the time, they can be quite slow and plodding and happy, but will suddenly change direction. And that's unusual. The roosters will do it a bit. Rooster years will do it a bit. So in the last rooster year, we had Brexit in the UK, Donald Trump. So it's like, woof, sudden change in direction. So we will see, keep an eye out for plot twists or changes in direction. So that's the essence of the rabbit. Put this together with the water energy, we end up with all this consequences, sustainability, authority, trust, power, purpose, leaving a mark, and then this sensitive energy kind of coming in. And you think, you might look at this and you think, oh no, that's really not very helpful. There's a lot of things for me to work out. Well, how do I manage all that? How are they going to interact? Well, fear not, we're just reaching this point in which you might be confused and you might be thinking, what on earth do I do? As I say, fear not, we're reaching a part 3 when I'm going to give you 3 guiding principles for 2023. So every year has set things that you kind of, if you do these things, then you'll kind of be all right. And these are the things that I really think you should consider for 2023. So the first thing that we need to consider and do in 2023 is go forth, have fun, and multiply sustainably. So does that mean we all go around breeding and doing all that stuff? No, it's the breeding of things, the creation of things. You're meant to kind of go out, bounce around, have fun. It's like, it's connected with like a spring energy, going out, fun, multiply, but it's having fun with it. So it could be you've been thinking about a project you've been doing forever, for ages. You think, oh, is this a good time to start doing it? Yeah, it's a really good time to start something new, or to change around something that you've been doing for a while, to see it in a new light. So it's a real time to kind of, it's a funny year because it is a really good time to go out with things, but it actually is also a year where we kind of also go inward with our sensitivity and resolve a lot of internal things. The key with this year, really important, is to go forth, have fun and multiply, but do it sustainably. And that's one of the lessons and experiences we're going to be having within this year is, can you get the balance between rest and activity right? We had that in the last year, and we're having it again, looking at, can we get that balance right, particularly as we're kind of going forward. So that's one thing you really need to do. The other one, I think, second one I think is really important, is to be brave, stay above ground, and stay connected. Rabbits, when they become startled, they go and just disappear underground. So we are going to be more sensitive. We are going to be more intuitive. There is going to be things. It's not such a harsh year, but we're going to be quite sensitive. So this is a time to be brave. And the fortunate thing is we're in a water energy year, and water energy is about dealing with fear, making us fearless, braver, etc. So this, I think it's really important that you just stay connected, because if we stay connected, then, and that's that community driven, you stay connected with things, it will really, really help you. So just be aware when you want to run away and hide, stay above ground. That doesn't mean you shouldn't rest, doesn't mean you shouldn't retreat, but this is a phase like it was in 1963, where we get to decide how the next 60 years will be. So if you want to have any influence or any input, then you've got to be brave, stay above ground, and stay connected. We have to do that together. But it is an easier year to do it because it's more community driven. And the third thing you need to do is to, and this is this kind of reuniting. Reuniting happens on many levels, but it's reuniting your actions and your heart with your soul's calling. And one of the things we'll have an experience in 2020, 21, and to a certain extent 22, was working out what it is that we want and what it is that we don't want, and how we want the world to be. And like I said, there is a soul calling at the moment, which can give you a bit of pressure to be out there and doing things. But again, it's trying to do that in a sustainable way that's kind of considerate, etc. So those are the 3 things. Now, when we look at, I also want to flip into this thing of reuniting your actions with your heart and your soul calling, and look at this aspect of water energy. Now, every energy has a soul, a spirit to it, or different components, qualities. And the spirit of water energy is Ming Men, which is often translated as purpose, and Zhi, which is often translated as willpower. But if you look at these Chinese characters, here, this one, Ming Men, purpose, it basically means from heaven and earth, and this is to voice something. So when you came from heaven to earth, you said something. You said you would do something, because this is an official stamp, and this is a banner in which you're meant to follow. This is a set of doors. So when you came from heaven to earth, you said you would do something. It got an official stamp, like a contract, and you were given a banner to follow, and then you walked through. And that's the spirit of the water energy. And Zhi, willpower, I think, is a beautiful character. The first top part, this radical, is this is a shoot being pushed through the earth, pushing something out into the earth. But this symbol, this radical below, is the representation of the heart. So it's saying, what are you going to use this jur, which they translate as willpower, what are you going to do from your heart to push out into the world? And that's an energy we've got this year with the sensitivity, the intuition, the adaptability and the luck to do that, and that kind of spring energy. So it's a really important year. So these are the simple principles that I think you should follow for this particular year. We'll look at part 4. We're just going to tell you 2 things that I think you really should watch out for. But before I do that, I just want to just mention a little bit of something that, like I said, this is an easy year, but when you see the things to watch out for, you'll go, oh, okay, so just remember the things to watch out for, though this is an easy year. So the first one is, as I talked about in this video, which I did about 18 or so months ago, perhaps slightly longer, I was talking about the fact that I personally felt deeply broken by the experiences that I'd had, by the people that I'd lost, what had happened. And the video is looking at that I don't think I was broken, I was fundamentally being rearranged. And I think in retrospect, you were being kind of rearranged or broken, depending which way you look at it. I was being rearranged in order to be who I meant to be at this particular time. But there is a recognition that at this moment in time, some of us are sensitive, some of us need healing, some of us need settling down. There is a delicacy to us at the moment as a result of what we've been through and some trauma that might be left behind. So just be aware that although there's this energy to go forth and multiply and do all these things, you need to do it in a way that perhaps involves some revisiting or reclaiming who you were, or exploring and releasing some of that trauma, if that is something that you experienced. Not everyone did, but some of us did. And it might be in this year, with that sensitivity and that intuition and that stuff, that it's a really, really good year to do some internal stuff, to deal with some really long-standing historic. Water energy is about history. So it might be, this is a great year to finally deal with some really early trauma, to release it, but also to release the trauma that perhaps we experienced during that kind of lockdown, COVID, or whatever came at the time when I felt deeply broken. So I have something just as a possibility suggestion for you at this particular thing. It's completely free. It's not up and running yet, but myself and a working group, we're putting together something called the Big Conversation. And it's a gentle exploration of how the pandemic lockdown, how it left us and what is yet to be resolved or created from it. So can you repurpose that experience in some way? So we are going to be starting those big conversations. So if you think, actually, I'd quite like to be part of a big conversation, and I was told very clearly not to do this, because lots of people said, no one wants to talk about that experience anymore. They want to all move on. Well, I'm not sure that's true. I think we've been left with something, not all of us. But if you've been left with something and you want to be part of that big conversation, then go to the 5 Institute events page, and that will be there for you. And like I say, it will be a very gentle, respectful releasing of stuff. So that might be something you want to consider, because it's something we do need to watch out for in this particular year with that sensitivity. The second thing that I think we need to watch out for is plot twists. And I alluded to that when we talk about the rabbit suddenly changing direction. We will see plot twists. But if you think about it in a film or a book or a play or a television program, when you suddenly have a twist in the plot, what are they about? Well, they're they're to wake you up, to alert you, to teach you something, to excite you, to be thinking, oh my goodness, I didn't see that coming. So we will have, oh, I didn't see that coming, but that's to maybe get us to change direction or to wake up or to alert. So don't be surprised if what you're planning to do now, you say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, by the end of the year is actually different than what you planned. It's actually, it will have evolved into something new. So there will be plot twists that we will inherently see. So when you see those, be aware. We're just moving into the water rabbit, and we've just had the the New Zealand Prime Minister announcing she's going to step down in order to deal with her own personal stuff that's kind of going on, which is great, a really sensible thing to do in this particular year. But it's a bit of a plot twist when you thought, oh my goodness, we're losing one of these world leaders who in many areas is very respected, and we're left with what's the word? Muppets. That's the word I was looking for. So there's going to be plot twists. The other thing which I'm going to talk a bit about in the we have something called the Water Rabbit Masterclass, which is 3 hours. We go through the year. We look at slightly more depth about what we need to do in this year And it's not just what you need to do, as I've explained, but if you're struggling to do that, it's got tools and stuff around how to do it, etc. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to look back a few years and say, okay, in this particular year, what were the 3 things you were meant to do? And if you didn't do it, it doesn't matter, because you can always catch up. And so I'm going to say, okay, if you didn't do these things in this particular year, don't worry, just do this instead, and it will cover it, because years build on things. So one of the things that we had in the Water Tiger year that we've just come out of, it was also about power and authority, but there was lots of stuff around who has authority in your life, who is trying to take power, who is trying to take things from you. And it's often taking our energy, our reserves, our time, etc. So this is a fantastic year to assert some boundaries back against the situation, scenario, relationships and stuff that perhaps took advantage of you or needed healing or sorting out. So, but we're going to go back on each particular year and say, this is the essence of what you should do. This is how you do it. So that's there for you. We're also going to look at your individual, we're going to look at each individual energy, and we're going to say, this is what's brilliant about this energy for this year, and this is what you might want to consider to be aware of. And so it will fit with everyone's vitality test profile. And as usual, I'm going to give away lots of things, whatever. But anyway, that is there for you. As normal, we have kind pricing. So we have 3 individual price models. You get exactly the same stuff. You just get to choose whether you want to do a lower or higher model, kind pricing. So that's there for you. What else have we got for you? Go in the right direction, plot twist. You've also got This Vital Life monthly membership. It depends when you listen to this, and it may be open. That's £35 a month. It's open at the moment. And you also get the Water Rabbit Masterclass completely free. That's there for you. So, could just join it for 1 month, get the masterclass and cancel. And that's fine with me. Want to do that? Absolutely fine with me. Of course, I want you to stay, but if you just want to do it for a month, 100% fine. Get the masterclass. And then the final thing I want you just to look out for, really targeted for this year, is starting 21st of February, we've got something called Energetic Superpowers and Heroic Actions, where we're going to do a 5-week quest looking at what are your energetic superpowers, how do you take heroic actions, and what could get in the way of those. So you've got events, got lots of different things for you, mindset makeover. Leaving just to say thank you very much for watching this. Thank you much for being here. You're here with me live, and I'm going to start taking some questions now. So I'm just going to stop recording, take some questions.